Okay, so this is our bonus video, and in this video I want to talk about two concepts of selection. One is called contiguous selection and the other is called non-contiguous selection. Let me just write that down for you so for you could see that. Let me open up a blank document. I'll probably include this on a cheat sheet also. All right, so contiguous, let me see how to spell that. Contiguous. That's how you spell it. And if you look at the definition, adjoining, neighboring, touching. Okay, keep that in mind. Contiguous. Oh, let me change it. Contiguous. There we go. Contiguous selection. All right. So a contiguous selection is what we've been doing. We've been making contiguous selections. All the previous videos you have seen were contiguous selections. And what that is selecting texts that are side by side or adjoining each other or adjacent. All right. Now, what I'm going to show you in this bonus video is non-contiguous selection. All right, which is selecting text that is not side by side or adjacent. Okay, and you know what? Let me go ahead and put this on the cheat sheet. I'm going to take this and copy this, Control C. So I'm selecting this. This is why we need to learn how to select. All right, so I can select this using the selection bar right there, just like that. And let me just take that, Control C. Let me open up the cheat sheet that I'm going to give you. And let me get that cheat sheet here. In advanced methods, let's come down here and we're going to say non-contiguous selection. Okay, you know what, let me take this here and I'm just going to take this one and select this and copy this and bring it here. And I'm just going to say selection theory. I'm going to select that. I'm going to Control X. Let me hit the end key because I want to go to the end of that sentence. And let me just paste that there. Okay. All right, I'm going to give you this cheat sheet. Don't worry. I'm going to include it in the video attachment and you'll see it. But let's talk about contiguous selection versus non-contiguous selection. Let's go ahead and go back to the example that we were using on our elephants page, elephants in India. All right. So if you look at what was just selected, by the way, this is a contiguous selection. This is a selection that's not broken up in two. It's one whole selection. Okay, one whole selection. There are no gaps in the selection. All right, this is called a contiguous selection. All right, just another example of a contiguous selection would be, this is a contiguous selection. Let me see if I can move them. There we go. This is a contiguous selection. It's one whole selection. The selection is not broken up. But if I go ahead and do something like this, this is a non-contiguous selection. Notice that the selection is broken up here. All right, that means I'm only going to be manipulating that which is selected. So if I hit Control, if I come up here and hit the bold, hit the italic, hit the underline, maybe change the words, the font type. All right, notice how only the selected words and paragraph is being manipulated. All right, let me hit Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. All right, I think that's good. Control Z. We're back now. All right, so a non-contiguous selection is a selection that's not adjacent to each other. If you notice here, let me go ahead and perform this okay, we got one selection here, and let's do another selection here. All right, this selection is not adjacent to each other. It's not touching. It's not one whole selection. It's actually two separate selections. Okay, and that's called a non-contiguous selection. So how do we perform a non-contiguous selection? All right, well, let's get to that. The first thing that you want to do is you want to use any of the methods that we talked about depending on what you want to select. So if you want to select one word, or if you want to select one line, or if you want to select one paragraph, you want to use any of those procedures that we talked about in the prior videos, part 1, part 2, and part 3. All right, so for example, let's go ahead and say I want to select all of the words elephants in here. Okay, so I'm going to select this one by clicking and dragging. All right, and after I select it, what I want to do in order to perform a non-contiguous selection is hold down the control button now and make your next selection. So let's do that one more time. I'm going to deselect. Let me go ahead. The first selection that I make, I do not want to hold the control button. Do not hold the control button on the first selection that you make. I don't care if it's a word, a paragraph, or 2 paragraphs. Do not hold the control button down on the first selection that you make. Okay, so for example, elephants is the first selection. I'm just making a regular selection like how I normally would. So I'm going to click and drag and select elephants, or I could double click elephants. And now on my next selection, I'm going to hold down the control button and select the word elephants. Boom, right there. Okay. I'm going to continue to hold the control button down until I'm finished selecting all of the words that I want to include in my selection. So here's another elephants. I'm going to use double click this time. Elephant. Okay, let's see. Do we see any? Okay, this is good for now. All right, so I've selected all of my elephants, and you can see that this is a non-contiguous selection. And the way that we use the non-contiguous selection is by using the control button. Now, the non-contiguous selection can save you so much time. It's not even funny. So it's very good that you get this down. Trust me. All right. I think on the certification exam, they have you do a non-contiguous selection. It might be in Microsoft Excel. That's where I remember doing it, not necessarily in Word. But in Excel, it's the same deal. Non-contiguous selections are huge in Excel. All right, so you're having a first-hand look here in Microsoft Word performing a non-contiguous selection. All right, and you're performing that non-contiguous selection by using the control button. You're leveraging the control button here to help you select more than one thing. Remember, your first selection is a natural selection. You don't use your control button on the first selection. You use your control button on every subsequent selection after the first one. That's how you're going to get your non-contiguous selection. And once you make your non-contiguous selection, you can go ahead and do all types of different formatting that you may want. Okay, let me hit Control Z. Let me take that back. All right, so non-contiguous selection. Please don't forget it. We will most likely be doing it, even if we don't do it in class. You will be doing it in the real world. Trust me, it saves you a whole bunch of time. Non-contiguous selection. Moreover, you will be using that in Microsoft Excel. Should you be taking Excel, and I'm sure most of you do want to take Excel. So just remember that non-contiguous selection is selecting text that is not adjacent to each other. Now, last bonus thing that I want to talk about, Let me zoom out. I want to show you something. Now, this is in respects to selecting, but it's also in respects to the non-printing characters. So if you remember the non-printing characters, I want to show you something. Now, let's say that I want to select the entire document. And this goes for anything, but we're doing the entire document right now. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about with the non-printing characters. So when I hit, well, before I even tell you, firstly, you already know there's a number of ways to select the entire document. Okay, we can triple click the selection bar over here. We can drag to select the entire document, or we can just hit Control A as an apple. Now, let me come down here and let me just turn your attention. And I know I'm talking fast here, but we just don't have a lot of time. All right, so let me zoom in. I'm zooming in down here, and I want to turn your attention to something that is very important for you to really grab the concept of, all right, with this non-printing character thing. So here I selected the entire document, but if you notice, the document technically ends right here. This is the last period of the document right here. All right, right after the word India is the last period in the document. Let me go ahead and just circle that. That's the last part of the document. Now, the question that I have on the table is, why is the selection going past the last period in the document? If you notice, the selection for the period stops right here, and then it takes on a new line right here. That selection is going here. Look at how it shouldn't do that. There's an extra selection here. If you didn't know, I'm telling you, this is an extra selected line right here. That's, I'm not going to say sloppy, but you need to just understand that that could be cleaned up. Okay? Understand that that could be cleaned up. All right, so how do we clean that up? Why is there an extra line selected? Well, let's go ahead and turn on our non-printing characters. Let's display our non-printing characters and find out why this blank line is selected. All right, so I'm going to go up to the Home tab. I'm going to go over to the paragraph group, and I'm going to click on our Show Hide button. Boom, and that's going to turn on our non-printing characters. Now, if you remember anything about non-printing characters, they represent blank space. It's how we edit blank space. It's how we add blank space. Well, at least one of the ways that we edit blank space or add blank space. Okay, but if you look here, we have a paragraph mark here, and that paragraph mark here is indicative of a blank line here, as you can see. All right, and that's why our selection is going past. This is our last paragraph. Why do we have this extra paragraph mark here? That doesn't make any kind of sense here. All right, so what we need to do is we'll just clean that up. All right, now some people will just leave it, and you can just leave it if it's not causing you, any other, formatting issues or appearance issues. You can leave it, but because you're learning, I want to just really emphasize the gravity of these non-printing characters, these blank lines, and also just neatening your work, all right, and cleaning it up. All right, so let's remove this non-printing character here. I'm going to place my cursor and click right in front of that paragraph mark, and I'm going to press the delete key to clean that up. All right, now we don't have that blank line, and as a matter of fact, let me go ahead and hit Control A as an apple, and look at that. It doesn't come down here anymore, the selection. All right, so those blank lines and those blank spaces, those paragraph marks, Word looks at it as something. All right, to the computer, it's something. To the human eye, you don't really see it. You're thinking like, oh, it's just a blank space and nothing. But Word sees it as something. And yes, in Word, it does represent something. So it's important that you understand that you do need to clean it up. Or if there's a reason why you have it there, then so be it. But notice how it's not there anymore. All right, so that's what I wanted to touch on this bonus video.